22 minutes moving away from the hour of 9 o'clock. Welcome back to the morning show and welcome to our weekly program, Policing with You. And in the studio with me this morning is one of our rotating hosts, Inspector Francis. And of course, I'm your moderator for this morning. We're going to get right into this morning program and we'll indicate to you when the lines will be open. Good morning, Inspector Francis. And you know what? I was going to leave you to introduce your guest, but he's no stranger to the program, so let me drop the formalities and say good morning to Superintendent Henry.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Yes. Gentlemen, over to you.
Okay, pleasant good morning, GQ. Good morning to everyone out there in the listening audience. In the studio here with me, I have Superintendent Henry, Divisional A Commander. Welcome, Superintendent Henry.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes, at the moment we have a curfew in effect and we have a state of emergency. Superintendent Henry is here in the studio today to sensitize us about the do's, the don'ts, what is going right, what is going wrong. And I'll just turn over the mic to Superintendent Henry. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, Inspector. Good morning again to your listeners. I guess by now everyone will be very well aware as to the reasons why we are in the state that we are in, and the purpose for which we enforce these regulations. Now, prior to the 31st of March, there were some emergency regulations that were enacted, which calls for a 12-hour curfew from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. and it allowed certain businesses to operate during the daytime. It provided some exceptions for those businesses so that persons could replenish their grocery supplies and the hardware supplies, and other businesses that were exempted. I think in that first regulation there were about 14 entities that were permitted to be open during the daytime. Mm-hmm. This of course defeated the purpose for which the state of emergency was called. The whole purpose of the state of emergency is to keep people off the streets, to avoid persons congregating and getting too close to each other, because that is the way the disease spread. Mm-hmm. It is spread by person-to-person contact. And so those situations where you have persons flocking to supermarkets, flocking to hardware stores, it really defeated the purpose, and there were persons who were coming too close to each other. And so Parliament, in its wisdom, revised that or repealed that particular regulation and replaced it with a new one. Now, in this new regulation, only 4 entities were permitted to operate during the period of the state of emergency, and these are hospitals and medical facilities, pharmacies and medical supply establishments, businesses licensed to provide security guard services, and other persons who the commissioner may exempt. So it narrowed the list from 14 down to 4. And if we were to look at what happened Monday morning in terms of the amount of traffic that were on the road, persons complain of being in long lines stretching from Connery to Cayon, in some cases from Shadwell right up to Lower Monkey Hill. And in town, it was just like a normal day. Of course, that put persons at risk for the spread of the disease, and it wasn't a situation that was tenable and could have been allowed to continue. So now, with the new regulations, a 24-hour curfew has been imposed, and we've seen the difference. There's hardly anyone on the streets other than those who are exempted, and these 4 entities that are exempted: medical personnel, security personnel, and those personnel that the commissioner would have exempted. And so we think that now the objectives are being achieved in keeping persons from being too close to each other to slow or prevent the spread of the disease. We've also, under the old regulation, we've also had some difficulties where we've seen persons congregating at certain entertainment spots, on the beach, the ferry terminal, and certain bars, and it was like a holiday for some persons. Again, this new regulation is more specific to the activities that are restricted, and I will go through the activities which were not under the previous regulation. It says no person shall host, attend, or visit a private party. Of course, unless it's virtual. I've seen some entertainers, they're having virtual parties. That is permitted. Everybody stay in the house and log on and enjoy the party. But parties, physical parties, those are strictly prohibited. A recreational or competitive sporting event or other types of public entertainment. So any sporting event or any public entertainment, those are prohibited. A wedding, you have to postpone your wedding until after the state of emergency.
Put up the wedding.
So weddings, banquets, balls, receptions, any ceremony in any facility or public place, those are prohibited. Funerals, meeting of fraternal society, private or social clubs or civic associations or organizations, those are restricted, of course. Any public beach, you cannot go to the beach on Sunday afternoon and have your usual beach line. That is now restricted. Any bars or rum shops or any other type of social event. So it basically shuts down entertainment generally. So all these things that we have grown accustomed to, we just have to make the sacrifice for our own health and just stay in our homes now and enjoy it virtually. So those are the main differences between the old regulation and this new one. Now it is important to note that this regulation would expire at 6 a.m. on the 3rd of April. So it means that Parliament would have to introduce new regulations to take us beyond that point. So they would evaluate what happened during this period and make adjustments necessarily going forward. So we do not know yet what would happen going forward after the 3rd of April, but I know we can expect new regulations because the state of emergency was put in effect for 14 days and the 14 days has not expired. So there will be new regulations to guide us as to what restrictions, what we can do after the 3rd of April.
Okay, thank you very much, Superintendent Henry. What are any major issues that law enforcement officers having at this time?
Well, the purpose of the function, one of the function of the law enforcement is to basically enforce the provisions of this regulation. It sets out certain things that you can and cannot do, and so law enforcement function generally is to enforce the law. If the law says you cannot do it, our job is to make sure that you do not do it. And so our major challenge is keeping people off the street. I must say, however, though, that people are cooperating very well.
Beautiful.
The streets are basically deserted, and the one or two persons who we find on the street, most of them are exempted and permitted to be there. Now, over the last 2 days, between the 1st and now, we have made 12 arrests.
12.
We've made 12 arrests. That includes Nevis. There were 2 in Nevis and 10 on St. Kitts.
And these arrests coming out of persons breaching the curfew and the order.
Breaching the terms of the curfew. They're found on the street during the period when they're not supposed to be there, and so they were arrested. After 12, 2 has been charged formally, and the others have been informed that they will be prosecuted. And so they should not think that they are scot-free. They will still be taken before the court. And it is important to note that the penalty provided under this regulation is very severe. The law provides for persons who breach these regulations on summary conviction, they'll be liable to a fine not exceeding $5,000. $5,000, or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months, or to both fine and imprisonment. So the magistrate could charge you $5,000 up to $5,000 and send you to prison for up to 6 months.
Both.
So you have to pay both, and you have to pay the fine and do the time. It just depends on the circumstances of the case. The magistrate has that discretion. And for the forfeiture of any goods or money in respect of which the offense has been committed. So if you are transporting goods, you say that, hey, I'm going to carry these food to stock up my supermarket, and you're not supposed to be on the road during that time, the police can seize
Same goods.
Your truck with the goods that you're taking to stock your supermarket, and or whatever money you may have, that is in relation to the violation, those could be seized. So the penalties are quite severe, and we really would not want to see person have to pay these fines or endure the penalties. So we ask persons to continue to cooperate and to abide by the terms of the regulations.
Yes. So I'm going to ask you one more question before we break for word from our sponsors, and when we come back, I want the general listening audience to know that we'll await your questions and anything you want to ask or suggestions that you want to make to add to the program and the listening audience. False information. We have social media, which is so vibrant. From time to time, false information will be going out. Do you have any advice for the general public pertaining to false information with reference to COVID-19?
Well, yes. We always implore persons to only accept information from credible sources, government sources, the police, the Ministry of Health. Those are the only two authorized entities that are really authorized to disseminate any information in relation to what's happening now. So if you see something on Facebook and it's not quoting the police or the Ministry of Health, then you really should disregard it or call and confirm whether or not it is so. Call one of these entities to confirm whether or not it is so. For example, I've seen something on Facebook that's saying Social Security would have been paying checks yesterday.
Wow.
And that did not come from Social Security. That did not come from the police or the Ministry of Health.
Wow. And
so you really should not follow those type of things. As you listen to that, you go on down by Social Security to get your check, you get arrested.
Yeah,
so Social Security will be closed. I was also seeing one that says everybody who came into the country within the last month would be arrested.
I've seen that one too.
Police would quarantine those persons.
It's terrible.
These things just create fear and panic, and it really does no good to the society. So we ask persons to refrain from spreading these false messages, and we ask that persons only rely on credible sources for their information.
Yes. Thank you very much, Superintendent.
I must also mention before we move to the calls that the Commissioner exercising his discretion to exempt persons has created an exemption for farmers. We know the Director of Agriculture in his presentation at one of the briefings had said that animals cannot go more than a day without water. It is not wise to have the animals, given the weather that we have, go without water. The plants could survive a couple of days without water because we are accustomed to drought conditions here sometimes. But the animals he was very concerned for. And so the Commissioner has granted exemptions for livestock farmers. There's a distinction here between the livestock farmers and the regular vegetable farmers. The livestock farmers only, they are permitted between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. to be out to tend to their animals. So if you meet a police checkpoint, once you satisfy the police that you are going to tend to your animals, then you will be permitted to do that. He has also granted permission for persons who are caregivers. There are some persons who look after their parents who do not live with them, and those persons would be allowed to visit their parents and feed them and do whatever they are accustomed to do with regards to them. All we ask is that before you leave home, you call the nearest police station and inform the police that I'm now leaving my house to go to my mother at X place, and I'll be back by this time, so that if you are stopped by the police, there's some source that the officers there could confirm that you would have gotten permission. So those are the two exceptions that the Commissioner has made. Any other exemption, they would have to be in writing. And so if you think that you need exemption, you would have to write to the Commissioner and make an application, and he would, in his own deliberate judgment, determine whether or not to grant.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the Commissioner for making those exemptions and discretions based on farmers and the elderly persons.
Right.
GQ, we'll now break for news from word from our sponsors.
Since graduating from college, saving has been very difficult for me. Having to pay my student and vehicle loans and hire purchases made owning my home a fantasy. So, when I heard about the National Grad Home Mortgage, I was excited and relieved because the National Grad Home Mortgage consolidated all my consumer debts, plus, most importantly, providing funding to build my dream house with one monthly payment. Thank you, National Bank.
Visit any of our National Bank branches for more details about our National Grad Home Mortgage. When you bank at National, you invest in your future.
All right, welcome back to the program. And let me say good morning once again to Inspector Francis and his guest this morning, Superintendent Cromwell Henry. We're going to open the lines for you to get your questions and concerns. But before I do so, it'd be remiss of me not to ask this question because I've been asking people to indicate, if you don't like to call and indicate to me what the question would be. And the number one question that I've been receiving all morning in a different way is, what is the step forward after 6 on Friday? I know you indicated in terms of the regulations, which you can't speak to at the moment, but in terms of at 6 o'clock on Friday, what can the people in St. Kitts and Nevis expect to happen? Is it back to normal?
As I mentioned, we are hoping that those new regulations will be out by later today, sometime today. And so persons would know what would be expected of them after 6 a.m. tomorrow. But I'm almost certain that there will be new regulations today.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's go to the phone line and let's take our first call for this morning. Good morning, you're live.
Good morning, my boy.
Hey, good morning, Carl.
Morning,
And
sir.
good morning to the officers there.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning to the listeners home and aboard Carl going here. Officers, question. 6 o'clock, from 6 o'clock tomorrow, seeing that the 24 hours curfew will come to an end, and I guess later in the day, depending on the situation between tonight and tomorrow, and whatever else come about, that new regulation would be in place. But also, the 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew is still on, if I see even a weekend. Other than that, tomorrow, do fishermen love to go out to sea to check on the pots and whatever else, and could come back and get off before 7 p.m.? That's one question. And another question is concerning these people that are being caught on the road, not even driving the car. When I'm going to work at night, I see many people who don't have no reason at all, speeding to get wherever they want to go. And this is like 9:30, between 9:30 and 10 p.m. Is those people that are caught, do you impound the vehicle? And we know you arrest them, and I guess some charges would be laid to them. But are the vehicle impound, and are they are charged differently to what the magistrate is going to charge if you, the police, is going to charge a charge for impounding the vehicle, for having the vehicle and themselves and others on the road? Again, I'll listen up here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bond. Superintendent?
Yeah, well, thank you much, Carl. You asked about the fishermen, if they can go out after 6 tomorrow. As I said earlier, we do not know what the new regulations will permit or not permit. So we have to wait for the Prime Minister's next announcement to tell us what will be the way forward after 6 a.m. tomorrow. So, as I said, this particular regulation expires at 6 a.m. tomorrow, and we expect that new regulations would be in place before that time, so that we have a smooth transition into the new period after the 3rd. So after sometime during the course of today or later this evening, we would know what to expect tomorrow. I cannot say at this point until those announcements are made by the Prime Minister. In terms of the
vehicles caught speeding.
Well, as I mentioned, persons who are found in violation of the curfew, they will be arrested. And I said in the penalty section, it provides for the whatever transport or goods that you're carrying to be forfeited. So of course, if you're driving a vehicle and you're arrested, your vehicle would also be impounded. There is no specific fee or fine for the impounding of your vehicle, but your vehicle will be taken in custody as well once you're arrested.
Thank you very much. JQ, any more calls?
We have 3 calls on hold. Let's take our first one. Thank you for holding. Good morning. Yes, you're live. Go ahead.
Morning, you're live.
Okay, we seem to have lost that one. Let's try this one. Good morning. Seem to have lost that one as well. Good morning. Yes, man. Morning.
I am here. Global good morning to everybody.
Morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
One little simple question. Now, if I call GQ on my phone and I harass GQ can find out who harassed him by checking back with the telephone company. Now, is there any way that the police can find out who's sending these fake news on the telephone all over the place? And if you all can find out who's doing that, what is the penalty for doing that? Thank you for taking my question. I'll listen after here.
Yes, sir. Thanks for that call. With reference to fake news, you specifically said fake news on the telephone. So there is particular procedure in ascertaining who called who, and police will communicate with the telecommunication departments and obtain the relevant information, and then pursue a case if necessary. Once somebody make a report to the police would carry out the relevant investigation and see how far we can take the evidence. I hope I've answered your question. Next call.
All right. Good morning. You're live.
Good morning, GQ.
Good morning.
Good morning to the police officer there. So I know that the commission exempt livestock farmers, okay? But there is no exemption for crop farmers, because the reason given is that the crops can withstand drought or whatever. But we are talking about food security, and we know about the problem with the monkeys. My information is that they are registered farmers with the Department of Agriculture, which were issued with ID. So I think that they should be allowed to go at least within the same time to see what is happening on the farm and return home. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I was listening to a newscast, and if I'm correct, that this is allowed in Nevis. So there's some inconsistency here with respect to the crop farmers and our officials on St. Kitts versus what's happening in Nevis. But I do think that they should be allowed to go and check on the food that is on the ground that we may need if things get worse. So I'm just imploring that this be taken a look at and make the necessary adjustment. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for your call. Gentlemen.
Well, I'm certain that the authorities are listening. The Director of Agriculture, I'm certain he's well aware of these concerns. And all these things will be taken into consideration for the next regulation that is forthcoming. And so hopefully it might be addressed in the next regulation. But for now, that is the way it is, and I'm certain that it will be addressed going forward after today.
All right, we have 2 callers on hold. Let's see if they're still there. Good morning.
Yeah, GQ.
Yes.
Good morning to everybody who's there.
Morning, sir.
I want to know, right? You come this morning to release what's going to happen tomorrow, right? And I think usually you don't get the information from the Prime Minister, because a man like me who want to go to the market at Saturday, I go to market every Saturday morning. And tomorrow I have to go Transparsa by the head center. If it's open, I have to go at 4th Street. So I want to know what time I could be in town, because they say tomorrow what time, 6 o'clock? And then what time I could leave town, because I don't want to say when 6 o'clock to 2 o'clock, 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock. So I got to hustle, because I'm the old man right now, and I can't do too much hustling. So I want to know about them 2 things there. The market Saturday, when I go market every Saturday, I go in the greens. So I want to know, so I could stay home. I don't want to get nothing, because I ain't got 5,000. All right, all the best, eh?
Thank you very much, sir.
Let me know about the health center, please.
Well, as I said before, continue listening to your radio throughout the day. I'm certain that an announcement will be made as to what will happen for tomorrow. So just continue to tune in to your favorite radio station, and you will get an announcement from the authorities guiding us on the way forward after tomorrow.
Okay, let's take the next call that was on hold. Let's see if they're still there.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello?
Yes, you're live. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning.
Morning, sir.
I'm good program as usual on informing the public. Now I understand the implications with reference to COVID-19 and the effort that is being made to stop the spread. But in listening to the program and even before the state of emergency had been declared, lots of people was going on what they describe as panic shopping. Now, I must say that it's not every person or everybody has the kind of money in hand to stock up, like say for even a month. We must be that there are lots of people, because of the income, they might be only able to shop for a week. Now I heard the superintendent saying there that if supermarket people is saying they're taking supplies to the thing and so on, they might be arrested and what's not. And another issue is, I know there's lots of people who are at the home and they're sick. They have things like high blood pressure, diabetes, and what's not. Okay? Now, even before the state of emergency was declared, I went to a particular drugstore to stock up on some medical supplies that I take on a monthly basis. And there was one item that I could not get. They said they ain't had any. And I exhausted myself going to several other drugstores and I could not get that item. So, and my stock is running low. And it is necessary for me to have that particularly drug, right? And I too am wondering, when Friday come, what will I do? What will I do? Because it's a necessity. It's a necessity. And I don't know. It seems as if that somewhere down the line, I am not against anything that the government is trying to do in curbing this deadly virus. I understand that. But it would appear to me that maybe the police might end up having to deliver food supplies to the homes of some people and medication. Okay, that is my input on that. So I mean, let's see. Let us all see what announcement will be made later in reference to the crisis, bearing in mind two things I have in mind. People who may not have, who may have an insufficient food stock in their homes, and people who are home and they are sick and they need necessary medication. Insulin could be one of those items. And that is my concern. Again, I want to reiterate that I am not against what the authorities is trying to do. I understand it in trying to curb this deadly virus. But these is aspects of the whole situation that we have to look to, because if you cannot get anything to eat, you might end up starving in your home. And if you can't get necessary drugs, you might worsen your condition. And when it may not be the COVID-19 that kills you, it might be lack of you having access to your necessary drugs. I will listen after you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, caller. You said quite a mouthful. You made some very important points. I must say this though, I was at the Emergency Operations Center yesterday, and the Ministry of Social Development, they are represented there, and they were feverishly putting together care packages to deliver to those persons who are shut in, who do not have anyone to look after them, food package, medication, and police were actually delivering these goods to these persons on behalf of the Ministry of Social Development. So yes, those persons are not forgotten, and as I mentioned earlier, the Commissioner has granted concessions, exemptions for persons who are taking care of these persons to move about, to look after these persons. In the regulation, as I mentioned earlier, medical facilities, pharmacies are permitted to be open, and so persons who are accessing these services, they will just have to get permission in order to venture. So you must have an emergency, some urgent reason to access either the doctor or the pharmacy and get necessary permission to move about. So we will not allow anyone to die for lack of these services. We know that these persons require these services, and so there's provision in place to deal with these particular issues when they come up.
And just to remind of a point that you made earlier, you indicated that in the case of that scenario, you can call the police,
right,
and indicate why you're moving. So that way, if another police stops you and they're not aware of it, right, when they call in to rectify what you're saying, yes, that you're granted permission. So
but you must be en route to where you say, if we give you permission to go to X place, and we find you at Y place that is far from X place to get permission, then you cannot use the permission that you got to go X place to go Y.
Right.
So you must
don't ask for inch and take a mile.
Pardon?
Don't ask for inch and take a mile.
Right. Don't ask for inch and take a mile.
Gentlemen, we have 3 calls on hold. I'm hoping that they're still there.
Could we take the last call?
Well,
let's take the 3 calls since they are already
take the 3 calls.
Yeah, I will.
I remember what you said earlier.
Yeah, and because you are in there, you're not subjected to what I was subjected to.
Okay.
Time has been changed to 10:30.
Okay. Understood. Beautiful.
So we have enough time.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So thank you for holding, and good morning. Hello. All right.
Yes. Hello. Good morning.
Yes. Good morning.
The superintendent said something, and it left me kind of baffled concerning the fake news coming from Social Security. Is it my understanding, if it was real, that Social Security would have notified either the Department of Health or the police to put out that information?
No, sir. And the curfew started on the 31st of March. The 24-hour curfew started on the 31st of March. And so it will be quite irresponsible for Social Security to ask persons to come on the 1st of April to collect checks when there's a 24-hour curfew in place. And I'm certain that Social Security would not be that irresponsible.
Yeah, but I understand that. But you saying that reliable sources would either be the police or the Department of Health. And that may be so, but I'm asking that if Social Security was to do that, would they notify the Department of Health or the police? That's my take. And one more thing. Yesterday I saw a video on social media with these Chinese guys. Do the police, after they place someone under arrest, they escort them to the station, let them drive, and I see police officers with no gloves, no masks, and we're telling people to, do this social distancing, and here we had the police, operating as if it was normal. I find that a bit strange. It's either you're going to place them under arrest, handcuff them, seize the vehicle, and that would be a cost on that person. What to escort, and it doesn't seem right to me. Thank you.
Gentlemen, before you answer that caller, let's take these other two calls. I'm sure you're competent, more than competent enough to take these two calls, and then we'll forward again, if that's okay with you guys.
Sure.
All right, so thank you for holding, and good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Yes.
I would like to know if I could get into town to go to the IBC tomorrow morning to get some money and stock up on some more food. And how many passengers would the bus be carrying?
All right. Okay. Let's take this next one. Thank you for your call, and thank you for holding. Good morning.
Yes, guys. Carl here again. Question. Tomorrow morning, we know before the 24 hours curfew was in place, we had the mom and pop shop, the bars and so were open until 5 in the afternoon. Are we going back to that tomorrow? With the mom and pop shop opening until 5 and the bars and so. And the other thing is, I noticed that supermarkets, pharmacies and those big places or small businesses are letting in 5, 6 and 10 people. But guys, if you look outside, the line is extremely long at those places and the people are less than 6 feet away outside in the line, and many of them don't have on masks or gloves. Now, if there were to be an outbreak, you see what problem we would have been causing with these long lines, and people are not 6 feet away, people are not geared up and protected. People are just in mind of getting into these businesses to get a chance to get what they want. So maybe you all could look into that and make some adjustments. Again.
All right. Let's you all address those callers before we take any more.
Superintendent?
Well, yes. With respect to Carl's last comment about social distancing, the regulation make specific provisions for social distancing, and I will speak to what the regulation says. It says any establishment that is permitted to operate pursuant to the provisions of these regulations shall make the necessary arrangements to facilitate social distancing and physical distancing, and shall ensure that all customers and staff maintain physical distancing of at least 6 feet in or outside of their business, in a line to enter the business. So this addresses what Carl mentioned about persons lining up outside and they're within the 6 feet. The business has an obligation to ensure that the customers who are lining up outside the business maintain a 6 feet distance apart. He went further to say, the business shall determine the number of persons that may be permitted inside the establishment at any one time by permitting one person for every 30 square feet of space. So they would have to, depends on the size of the establishment, they will determine how many persons could be allowed based on this formula. One person for every 30 square feet. Place distance markers at least 6 feet apart, indicating where each customer must stand on a line at the checkout point or other line. So they should have 6 feet distance markers in the checkout at the cashier, so that each customer must know where they should stand. So you don't have one customer right behind the other customer within the 6 feet. So there should be lines on the floor indicating where the 6 feet distance is. Place markers at least 6 feet apart on the outside of the establishment, indicating where customers must stand while waiting to enter the establishment. So the regulation puts some responsibility on the establishments, the business establishments, to enforce the social distancing recommendations by placing markers on the ground and to ensure that the business place do not have more persons that would cause persons to be closer than the 6 feet. So yes, Carl, there's regulations for that, and I guess we have to do more in enforcing, ensuring that the businesses take their responsibilities serious. I think we had another person who would have mentioned about, can fishermen go out? No, this the one about social security, sorry. Social security is a responsible entity, and social security will not make announcements that contradicts the law. I could almost guarantee that. And so social security would not make an announcement for persons to come to town on the 1st of April when there is a curfew starting the 31st.
If I may, though, from listening to the caller, I think his bafflement was with your statement when you're saying if you need any update, you need to go to the police and the Ministry of Health. Yes, but I think he might have misunderstood what you're saying, that Social Security doesn't have a right to post, and which they do, which you just indicated. So I think that's his bafflement. I think because you didn't highlighted it.
Did not post that.
No, they didn't.
They did not post
no, they didn't. But in terms of getting information, he's saying, shouldn't he go to, if you need to know about Social Security, shouldn't he go to Social Security? That's what I'm saying. That's a given.
Right.
That's a given.
If you have a concern, a question for Social Security, you can go to Social Security and they would guide you based on what they are doing.
And I think that was his, because he said he was baffled by your statement.
Okay. Yes. Go to the police. I get it now.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But if you have concerns specific to an entity, so for example Social Security, if you have a question for Social Security, there's nothing wrong with calling Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
Social Security is a government entity.
Mm-hmm.
It's a statutory body, and so you could go to these official bodies to get information. But what I'm trying to say, you should not take your information from some anonymous source on Facebook. If you see something on Facebook that comes from some individual page or something on WhatsApp coming that is forwarded, you should not take that as the gospel. Go to the source. If it says that the police say, then go to the police Facebook page. If it says that Social Security say, go to Social Security's Facebook page
and verify
before you forward or before you accept it as truth.
Gentlemen, we're going to take 3 more calls and we're going to call it that for this morning.
I think there was one more question about money and stock up and food stuff tomorrow.
Oh, yes, but I think you guys indicate that.
We will be informed later today as to what will be the position tomorrow. I'm certain that you will get information before the day is out as to what you should do or what you'll be allowed to do tomorrow.
Right.
I just want to mention that the state of the curfew does not only apply to Bastille, it's the entire country, St. Kitts Nevis, both in the rural areas and in the city. So I do not want persons to think that I'm living in Fig Tree, so I could go down on the deck by the beach bar and hang out, because it's not in town.
Right.
It applies to the entire country, every village, every town within the country.
I must say this before we take a next call. For those of you who might be not hearing Superintendent clearly, that's because we are practicing social distancing in the studio. So we apologize. We apologize for that. All right, so we have 3 more calls here, and we're going to take these 3 calls, and we're going to call it that for this morning edition of Policing with You. Make notes, gentlemen. We're going to take them back to back.
Sure.
Good morning.
Good morning, DQ.
Yes, good morning, man.
And good morning, Inspector, and good morning, Superintendent.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
Good morning to your listeners via radio and internet. I just like to get a clarification on this statement that the Superintendent make reference in the regulation that is implied. Right now, that one going to be seized by tomorrow, 6 a.m. Well, you say that the following regulation will be imposed according to what above the circumstances arise right now under the curfew and in this lockdown. But basically, I would like to know, will this new regulation go into the Parliament sitting, or it just come from the Prime Minister and the Governor General indication from the lawmaking body?
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, let's take this next one. Okay, we lost that one. So this is going to be your final call for this morning. You're live.
A pleasant good morning.
Yes.
Your great program.
Morning, sir.
I like the observation a caller made earlier in connection with the video he saw and how the police were dressed and so on. What if they come across someone unknowingly have the virus? Do they have protection enough to combat that? And every time the NEOC have a briefing, they put out 4 numbers. I think people should remember those numbers, and all of them begin with 466. and they as follow: 466-6892, 9626, 3874, 7453. Thanks. Take care, boss.
Thank you, and do not forget 311. 311 is the hotline that you could get very easily. It's a toll-free call, and you call 311 and you get whatever information you want with regards to COVID. 911 is still also available, so those are two numbers that are toll-free, and they're always accessible 24/7 if you can't remember the 465 numbers.
Yes, Superintendent.
Well, with respect to the arrest, you mentioned the arrest. The officers have been advised to wear protective gear. Those have been made available for officers. They have been sensitized as to the risks that they are exposed to, and so they are required to take the precautions to protect themselves. We have special teams that has special gears. If we are dealing with a suspect case, we have a known suspect case, we have special teams that deal with those. The regular officers will not deal with those. So we have special teams that are properly equipped to deal with special cases. For example, we are assisting the Ministry of Health in enforcing the quarantine. Those persons who are self-quarantined, they are paid daily visits to ensure that they are complying with the quarantine regulation, the quarantine terms, and so these officers are specially equipped for that. At this point, I just want to again make an appeal to those persons who are self-quarantined, who are quarantined at home, to take this serious. Your status is not known, and so we would not want you to venture out in public not knowing what your status is and later find out and be sorry after. So we ask those persons who are being quarantined at home to really stay at home and abide by the terms of the quarantine. The Ministry of Health has some forms that persons are asked to sign to say that they understand the terms and they agree to abide by the terms, so that if you're found violating the terms, we would have more legal grounds to deal with you once you would have signed and accept the terms and conditions of the quarantine. So we ask persons who are quarantined by the health officials to comply with the instructions given by these officials.
Well, Superintendent, I want to thank you very much for taking time out, coming into the studio and policing with you. I want to thank the listening audience and the new callers and frequent callers for calling in. I want to thank everybody. Be safe during this curfew and be safe in general. Thank you very much.
Thank you.